Imagine this. The phone rings and on the other end is a frustrated customer. What do you do? First, let them talk. Don't interrupt, just listen and take notes. Then summarize their complaint, clear up any details, and show empathy. Next, apologize. No excuses, just a sincere apology, and if needed, a brief explanation. After that, state clearly what you will do to fix the problem. Let them know when they can expect results or feedback. And most importantly, stay calm. Remember, the issue is the problem, not the person. In this lesson, we'll learn how to turn a difficult complaint call into a professional and positive experience. Now it's time for the listening practice. Tony Hops is phoning Kelly at Argonaut Mediterranean Cruises to make a complaint. Listen and complete the notes that Kelly Masterman took during her phone call with Tony Hops.
Argonaut Mediterranean Cruises Limited.
This is Tony Hops here. Is that Kelly Masterman, the general manager?
Speaking.
Right. Well, you listen here, Ms. Masterman. I've just arrived home from one of your Eastern Mediterranean cruise ships, Queen of the Waves, and I'm not at all happy. I've got a whole list of complaints.
Oh dear, I'm sorry to hear that. Let me just get a pen and I'll note them down. Right. Can you give me the details?
Well, first of all, we booked an expensive cabin on the outside of the ship. But there was a problem with that cabin and there were no others available on the outside. So we had to have one in the middle of the ship, and my wife spent 3 days feeling really seasick. Then, for the buffet lunch, it was supposed to be an all-you-can-eat buffet. But when we got there at 2 p.m., we found that there were only a few bits of cheese and salad left for us. And then, in the programme for Saturday evening, it said there was a fancy dress party. So we dressed up, but we found that everybody else was just in jeans and t-shirts. It was so embarrassing.
Oh, you must have felt terrible.
Yes, we did. And finally, I sent my costume to the ship's laundry to be cleaned, and it got lost. That really was the last straw.
So, let me just recap. In a nutshell, you didn't get the cabin you ordered, the buffet lunch was finished by the time you got there, the fancy dress party listed in the programme didn't take place, and your costume was lost.
That's right.
Well, first of all, we're not going to try to pass the buck here, so we would like to apologise to you for these problems. This is what I propose. I'm going to call the ship and see if I can find out what was going on. Can I call you back in 20 minutes?
Yes, that's fine. Do you have my number? It's 02... Tony Hops speaking.
Hello, Mr. Hops. It's Kelly Masterman here. I spoke to the ship's first officer. It seems that the porthole in your cabin was broken by the previous passenger and water was coming in, but he apologised for not explaining what the problem was to you. I'm afraid we can't refund the whole cost of the trip, but we can refund you the extra cost for the cabin that you didn't have.
That doesn't seem much. And my fancy dress costume?
On our website, you can find a document for insurance claims. Send in the form and we'll deal with that within a week. But as I said, we are really very sorry for these difficulties. So we would like to offer you a 10% discount the next time you book an Argonaut holiday as compensation for the problems you had. Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Hops?
Yes. I think that sounds reasonable.
Let's check the suggested answers. Let's move to the speaking practice. Match the two halves of the sentences following the example. Let's check the suggested answers.
1.
Could you bear with me for 10 minutes while I get to the bottom of what went wrong here?
2. I'm terribly sorry for the problems you're experiencing. 3.
I can imagine that was terrible.
4.
I propose that we offer you some sort of compensation.
5.
I'll make sure that it gets done by the end of the week.
6. That must have been dreadful. 7.
Could you tell me exactly what happened?
8.
I do apologise for our part in this.
Let's move to the next speaking practice. Put the sentences from the previous exercise in the correct category, as shown in the example. Let's check the suggested answers. Let's move to the next speaking practice. Find more sentences from the conversation to add to each of the categories. Let's check the suggested answers. Let's move to the next speaking practice. Listen to these sentences, noting how the keywords are stressed to make the speaker's meaning and intention clear.
1.
I'm terribly sorry for the problems that you're experiencing.
2.
I propose that we offer you some sort of compensation.
3.
I'll make sure that it gets done by the end of the week.
4.
I do apologise for our part in this.
Let's move to the next speaking practice. Listen to 2 versions of this extract from a telephone call and answer the questions. Let's check the suggested answers. Let's move to the next speaking practice. Listen to 4 speakers making complaints. Respond to them using expressions from the previous table. Play the audio CD to start. When you hear the beep, pause and respond.
1. And I had to wait for over an hour at the airport before the taxi came to pick me up. 2.
The whole conference was a farce. Delegates were wandering from room to room, and nobody knew where they should be or what was happening. What went wrong?
3.
And it was all your company's fault.
4.
So what are you going to do about it?
Let's check the suggested answers. Let's move to the next speaking practice. You run a catering company, Simply Delicious Food. Your telephone is ringing and complaints are coming in. Play the audio CD to start. When you hear the beep, pause and respond.
Hello, my name is John Grant, and I'm afraid there have been several complaints about the food that you supplied for our recent conference. Well, firstly, the food was delivered late. It was supposed to be served at 12 p.m, and your staff didn't reach the building until 12:15 p.m, and by the time they started serving, it was 12:30. And speaking of staff, several of your waiters didn't seem to know what they were doing, and ended up spilling food all over the place. Anyway, when the food was finally served up, it was cold and tasteless. We ordered chicken provençal, and all we got was a lump of lukewarm meat swimming in a bland sauce with a few limp tomatoes. Not very impressive. Yes, that's about the sum of it. Okay. Frankly, that doesn't seem enough. Okay, I suppose that's acceptable. As long as you can assure us that we won't have the same problems again.
Let's check the suggested answers. And that brings us to the end of today's lesson. We've learned that handling a complaint is not about winning an argument. It's about listening, showing empathy, apologizing sincerely, and offering clear solutions. When we stay calm, separate the problem from the person, and give the customer a clear next step, we turn frustration into trust. So the next time the phone rings with a complaint, remember, listen first, respond with empathy, and guide the customer toward a solution. That's how professionalism turns a problem into an opportunity.